I'm going to do one thing I've never done on this channel before, which is talk about Sabrina Carpenter. I've got nothing against her. I've actually liked what I've heard. Just, I review a lot of music. And the other thing I'm going to do is something I almost never do, which is talk about the hubbub, whatever the buzz is on the internet right now. Because the buzz on the internet right now is this album cover for Sabrina Carpenter's new album, Man's Best Friend. Right? So let's get to that, right? So that's what that looks like. She's on all fours in a small dress, and a man is dressed in apparently a suit holding onto her hair, right? And that's created, I suppose, a predictable backlash by sort of different sides of moralizing forces in American culture. See, I've watched Anthony Fantano talk about it. He had a pretty good take on it. Whatever floats your boat. Hassan Piker, or as Aaron Brown calls him, Hassan Parker, talked about it as sort of like, I don't know, that Zoomers are puritanical now. But what I want to do is and I can't be the only person who's saying this, but the first thing I thought of was it's a joke. It's a Spinal Tap joke. And so I'm sure a lot of people are going to be talking about how it's similar to the original cover of the album, Smell the Glove by Spinal Tap. If you don't know, Spinal Tap is one of my probably three favorite movies of all time. Came out in 1982. It's a rock mockumentary. I've basically half of my vocabulary in terms of humor comes from that movie. The other half comes from The Simpsons. And and so like in that whole story, the improvised movie has a couple of beats that were planned out ahead of time. They had an album cover. So what I want to do is I want to kind of put forth a new idea, because in this movie, the thing that gets them censored is the record company, is the stores that are scared of stocking this album. Whereas in the current day climate, the thing that might end up causing the backlash, the thing that might end up causing some form of censorship, is actually the reaction of the public itself, which is perhaps scandalized by this image of a teen star on all fours in a very clear S&M position. So let's dive deep into the Spinal Tap scene and sort of compare where are we now, what, 40, 43 years later? And we're going to watch Fran Drescher, leader of SAG-AFTRA. Later goes on to be the nanny, playing Bobby Fleckman, who is the studio person, the label person, who's in touch with the label boss, Sir Dennis Eaton Hogg, and talking about having to change the cover. So let's watch this, and you'll see the parallels, okay? You'll see the parallels. So I'm going to watch this scene with you, and we're going to really get into it. All right. So here she is talking to the manager of the band, discussing why the title doesn't work. Wait, I got to make sure I share the sound. I'm not going to fall for that trick again. Okay, here we go.
To me straight,
Listen, they don't like the cover. They don't like
Well,
the
that's
cover.
certainly straight.
They find it very offensive and
Why?
very sexist.
Well,
And
what exactly do you find offensive?
Ian,
what's
you
offensive about it?
put a greased, naked woman on
Yes.
all fours
Yes.
with a dog collar
With a dog
around her
collar.
neck and a leash.
And a leash.
And a man's arm extended out up to here, holding on to the leash and pushing a black glove in her face to sniff it. You don't find that offensive?
No,
You don't
don't.
find that sexist?
This is 1982,
That's
Bobby,
right,
come
it's
on.
1982. Get out of the 60s. We don't have this mentality anymore.
Well, you should have
Listen
seen
to
the
me.
cover they wanted to do.
I don't
It
care
wasn't
what
a
they
glove,
want.
believe me.
See, now this is something, Ian, that you're going to have to talk to your
Okay, now one of the great jokes, you should have seen the cover they wanted to do. It wasn't a glove. And so I love this idea of it's not 1982. I love that idea. I mean, it's 1982 because, we think that's a long time ago, right? I was what, 5 years old in 1982. But they're both saying it's 1982. So the manager is trying to say, we are all advanced. We're not afraid of sexuality anymore. And the manager is saying, it's 1982. We're, deep in the middle of the second wave feminism, and we understand that it's not okay to objectify women like this and put them in a debased position. Like, that's the whole great debate. And that's where we could have that debate right now. We could say it's 2025. How are we still having this argument? Are we so puritanical, or are we actually arguing in favor of agency? Is Sabrina Carpenter in a debased position? And if so, is it a problem? Okay, so as things go on, the label head calls and says that it has to be canceled, and he's very upset. And they have this very famous discussion, and it's a joke. Remember, this movie's all improvised, so this is Christopher Guest, one of his brilliant jokes here, where he is going to not understand the difference, but why there's a problem with this album cover. Okay, let me find it on my computer here. Okay, turn on the closed captions.
Well, so what? But what's wrong with being sexy? I mean, there's no trouble with sex.
Sexist.
Ist.
Okay, what is wrong with being sexy? No, no, not sexy, sexist. And that's the question. That's where it comes down to. Now, the funny thing is, what Spinal Tap is doing is they come back to it and they answer the question with one of their best quotes in the whole movie, fine line between clever and stupid. I actually quoted that when I was talking about the Lil Wayne album. I was trying to say that really, well, it's basically a question of whether you think something is fine or stupid. So let's see the ending of this whole dilemma. So what ended up happening was Spinal Tap had an album that was released and it was all black. You couldn't see anything. I met Harry Shearer, who played Derek Small as the bassist, and I had him autograph my DVD of Spinal Tap, black on black, so that you can't even read it, just because I think it's that funny, right? Now, apparently, I've been reading that Sabrina Carpenter's aunt is Nancy Cartwright, who's on The Simpsons as well. I have her book downstairs, The Confessions of a 10-Year-Old Boy. Anyways, it's a fascinating kind of story there. So we're going to see the ending here, how they finally understand, or they start to understand why this album was canceled. And then when I'm done with that, I'll come back and discuss what I think about the Sabrina Carpenter question. Okay? So let's go to the fine line between clever and stupid from Spinal Tap.
The big fat sweets.
Yeah.
What?
Have you seen Duke Fame's current album?
Yes.
Have you
Yes.
seen the cover?
No, I don't think
Well, it's
I
a
have.
rather lurid cover. I mean, it's
is
like
right.
naked women and
No, he's tied down to this table.
Uh-huh.
They've got these whips, and they're all semi-nude.
knocking on him, and it's
Yeah.
like it's
Well, what's
much
the point?
worse. Well, the point is, it's much worse than Smell McGlove.
Yeah, the point is, how did he
really
get
is
away
that
with
he's
that?
number three.
Because he's the
number
victim.
three.
Their objections were that she was the victim. You see.
Oh.
That's all right. I mean, if the singer's the victim, it's different. It's not
He did a
sexist.
twist on it.
He did.
A twist, and it's a whole...
We should have thought of that.
We were so
I
close.
mean, if we'd had all you guys tied up, that probably would have been fine.
Mate,
But it's still a
it's
stupid
such a
cover.
fine line between stupid and
clever.
yeah.
It's just a
clever.
little turnabout. Yeah.
All right. So that's where we end up. It's such a fine line between stupid and clever, and Duke Fame, his album cover he was, quote, the victim, which brings us back to this album cover and why it's a great album cover. Why, in my opinion, it totally makes sense because fundamentally what Spinal Tap didn't understand was a concept that was brought about through feminism, which was that of agency. And that's the question. Does she have agency? The woman in the fictional Smell the Glove album cover with the rubber glove and being forced to smell it didn't have agency. Now, we don't know. She might have put herself in that position, but whoever the model was, they were paid, they were coerced by money to do something that was debased for the benefit of the men in the band. Here we have Sabrina Carpenter who chooses this. This is her idea of a good time, right? And listen, did you see Baby Girl? I saw Baby Girl. I've watched a lot of erotica, that's designed for women. There's a lot of this theme here. I don't think this is for the male gaze. I think this is for female fantasy. That's not to say only women like the S&M and that kind of stuff. But this kind of thing, to me, I saw this and I thought, all right, well, I don't really know her music that well or her personality, but I think it's interesting that she is on this album after that big hit doing something that shows off her sexuality and what she values and being in this submissive position. And because she is choosing, so to speak, to smell the glove. And that's why it's okay. It's a fine line between stupid and clever. And I think you could also say it's a fine line between exploitative and empowering. And that's where we are. And I don't criticize anybody who sees this and thinks it's bad. Okay, I don't blame it because this is most of our fans are little girls and they might not understand this. And S&M is a hard thing to understand, even when you're an adult. But when you're a kid, it doesn't make any sense at all, right? It's just you just whatever. It doesn't develop. So the fact that she's dipping her toes in there, I can see it. But for me, I think it's great. I think it's clever and not stupid and empowering and not belittling. But there you go. You can tell me what you think. I know I don't do these things, but you know what? I just did a video on Obangaya, and it was a great video. Obang Jayar. It was a great video. No one's watching it. So if you think this is beneath me, go watch my Thunderground Thursday, you snobs. All right. And all of this is another desperate attempt for me to get the attention of Pat Finnerty because I know he's a big Spinal Tap fan too. We'll be friends someday. All right. Until next time, there's the camera. Wait, where's the camera?